Emma had spent a year planning her dream wedding. Soft ivory roses, candlelit tables, and a vintage lace gown she'd saved for since college. Every detail had meaning. Her fiancé, Daniel, had been her best friend since high school, the kind of man who held her hand through storms and promised forever. Her parents adored him, and her younger sister Lily, though sometimes distant, often joked about being her maid of honor. Everything felt perfect, until the night it all fell apart. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma was driving home from work when a car sped through a red light and slammed into hers. The impact sent her spinning. The world turned black. When she woke up, she was in a hospital room, her body covered in bruises, her leg wrapped in a cast. The doctors told her she was lucky to be alive. The wedding, of course, would have to wait, or so she thought. Her parents visited the first day, faces full of concern. Her mother squeezed her hand and told her to rest, that everything would be fine. Daniel visited too, quiet and pale, saying he'd stay by her side no matter what. But as the days passed, the visits grew shorter. Calls went unanswered, messages left unread. Emma told herself they were busy, maybe dealing with rescheduling or the stress of it all. She didn't want to be a burden. She believed they still cared. On the morning of what should have been her wedding day, Emma woke early. The nurse helped her sit up, and for the first time she smiled in weeks. She picked up her phone to scroll through social media, a small distraction from the pain. But then something caught her eye, a tag notification. She clicked it, expecting an old memory. What she saw instead made her stomach drop. There was Lily, in her dress. The same ivory lace, the same veil, the same bouquet Emma had designed herself, standing beneath the floral arch Emma had chosen. Beside her, Daniel, smiling, holding Lily's hand. Her parents stood proudly behind them, beaming at the camera. The caption read, "A beautiful day for a perfect couple. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Parker." For a long time, Emma couldn't breathe. The sounds of the hospital, the heart monitor, the footsteps, the soft voices outside, all blurred. The oxygen line tugged slightly as she sat frozen, staring at the screen. Her chest felt hollow. She kept waiting for someone to tell her it was a mistake, a joke, a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. The more she scrolled, the clearer it became. Her wedding hadn't been postponed. It had been stolen. Her parents had known. Daniel had chosen. Lily had accepted. And none of them had told her. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to cry out loud. The nurse came in, asking if she was okay. Emma smiled weakly and said she was fine. Because what else could she say? That her entire world had been taken while she was lying helpless in a hospital bed? She turned off her phone and stared at the ceiling. The white lights above her buzzed softly, too calm for the chaos inside her. She thought of the promises Daniel made, the words her parents had said. "We're so proud of you. Lily looks up to you. Family always supports family." Each one now sounded like a lie. The next few days passed in silence. No one came to see her. No flowers, no calls. Only the nurse, who noticed the emptiness in her eyes. When Emma was finally discharged, she insisted on taking a cab home. Her parents' house was the only place she had left to go, though she wasn't sure she could still call it home. When she arrived, everything looked the same. The trimmed garden, the white fence, the scent of roses. But inside, the air felt different. Laughter came from the dining room. As she stepped in, her mother gasped, surprised to see her standing there. Daniel and Lily sat at the table, smiling awkwardly. The silence stretched until her father cleared his throat and said, "Emma, you're back. You should have told us you were coming." Emma stared at them, her voice low but steady. "You canceled my wedding." Her mother looked away. "Honey, you were in no condition to... So you gave it to her?" Emma cut in, her voice sharp. "My dress, my day, my fiancé." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "It just happened, Emma. We didn't plan it like that." Daniel looked down. "I didn't mean to hurt you. But after the accident, things changed." Emma laughed, short, hollow, bitter. "Changed?" "I was in a hospital bed. That's all that changed." Her parents tried to calm her, to explain it away. They said it was too late to cancel the bookings, that everything had already been paid for. that Daniel and Lily found comfort in each other during her recovery. Every word made her feel smaller, erased, as if her pain was just an inconvenience. She stood there, heart pounding, realizing the truth. She had no one left. The people she trusted most had betrayed her without hesitation, without guilt. And now they were sitting there, pretending it made sense. Without another word, she turned around and left. She didn't slam the door or shout. She didn't need to. The silence she left behind was louder than anything she could have said. That night, she sat alone in her small apartment, the only light coming from the street outside. She looked at her reflection in the dark window, pale, tired, but still standing. The wedding photos still haunted her feed, but this time she didn't cry. She saved one picture instead, not out of pain but purpose, because in that moment, Emma made herself a promise. This wouldn't break her. They thought they had taken everything from her. But they'd made one mistake. They'd taught her exactly how cruel people could be when they thought she was powerless, and she was done being powerless. From that night on, Emma's tears dried. The pain hardened into something sharp, focused, quiet. She didn't plan on revenge, not yet, but something deep inside her shifted. She wouldn't let them erase her story. She would rebuild it, stronger, brighter, and far beyond what they ever expected. They had written her out of her own life. Now, she was going to write herself back in. When Emma came back home after weeks of recovery, the air felt heavy with silence. Her family didn't mention the wedding. It was as if they had erased that day from memory. Her mother greeted her with a forced smile. Her father asked about her health, and Lily avoided eye contact. Daniel wasn't there, not that she wanted him to be. Every corner of the house reminded her of what she'd lost. The vase of white roses on the dining table, the same kind she had chosen for her wedding. The picture frames showing Lily and Daniel smiling together. The smell of Lily's perfume in the hallway. Everything screamed betrayal, but no one spoke of it. That night, as they sat for dinner, Emma could hear the sound of her own heartbeat. Her father asked her to pass the salt, and Lily tried to talk about her new job. Her mother complimented the food. It was the same table where Emma once shared laughter, plans, and dreams. Now it felt like she was sitting among strangers pretending to care. She barely ate. Every word, every smile from them felt like an act. They were moving on, and she was just there. Later, Emma went to her old room. It was still filled with her belongings. The dress sketches she had pinned to the wall, the notebook where she had written ideas for her wedding, and the framed photo of her and Daniel from happier times. She took the photo down and stared at it. The smile on her face looked innocent, unaware of what was coming. She put it face down on the desk. The person in that picture was gone. Over the next few days, Emma noticed how normal everything seemed. Her parents treated Lily and Daniel as the perfect couple, asking about their new apartment, laughing at their stories. Her mother even called Lily Mrs. Parker, the name Emma should have had. Each word was a blade, but Emma stayed silent. She didn't shout or cry. She simply watched. It was easier that way, to be quiet, to observe, because beneath her calm expression, something was changing. She began spending hours in her room, writing, planning, thinking. She looked up jobs, business ideas, anything that would help her move out and rebuild her life. But every time she tried to focus, she heard them downstairs, her family, happy and content, as if nothing had happened. The more she heard their laughter, the stronger her resolve became. One morning, Lily came to her room, holding a cup of coffee. "I know you're upset," she said softly, "but it wasn't planned. Things just happened. Daniel and I didn't mean to fall for each other." Emma looked at her. "You didn't mean to?" she asked, her tone calm but cold. "You wore my dress. You used my flowers. You married my fiancé while I was lying in a hospital bed. That doesn't just happen." Lily looked guilty, but said nothing. She placed the cup on the desk and walked out. Emma watched her go, her hands trembling. Not with sadness anymore, but with control. She was done letting others decide her fate. A few days later, Emma found her mother in the garden trimming the roses. "You knew," Emma said quietly. Her mother froze. "You knew about Lily and Daniel before the wedding." Her mother sighed. "Emma, listen. You were hurt, and the wedding arrangements were already made. We didn't want to waste everything. Daniel was grieving, and Lily was there for him. Things just unfolded naturally." Emma clenched her jaw. "Naturally?" she repeated. "You turned my pain into their celebration." Her mother didn't reply. She simply went back to her roses, avoiding Emma's gaze. That moment sealed something in Emma's heart. Not anger, not hatred, but determination. She realized she could never make them understand her pain, so she stopped trying. Instead, she started thinking about her future. She had studied interior design in college and always dreamed of starting her own studio. Maybe this was her chance. She would no longer be the girl who got left behind. She would become something more, someone they couldn't ignore. Emma started working late into the night. She researched business plans, gathered her savings, and reached out to old contacts. Her designs were good, personal, emotional, and full of quiet power. While her family believed she was still broken, Emma was building something new behind the scenes. Every sleepless night brought her closer to freedom. Still, there were moments when the pain hit unexpectedly. A song playing on the radio that used to be their song. A passing wedding photo on social media. A random comment from her parents about how Lily and Daniel make such a perfect pair. But instead of breaking down, Emma let those moments fuel her resolve. Each reminder became another reason to rise higher. Months passed. Emma moved out quietly, leaving a note on her bed that simply said, "Thank you for the lesson." She rented a small apartment across town, just one room, barely furnished, but it was hers. She filled it with sketches, paint samples, and design mock-ups. It became her new world, quiet, focused, full of potential. Meanwhile, her family rarely called. When they did, it was out of politeness. Her mother once invited her over for dinner, saying Lily wanted to make peace. Emma politely refused. Peace wasn't something she could fake. Forgiveness would come one day, but not before she found herself again. At night, Emma would think about revenge, not the kind that destroyed others, but the kind that built her up so high that no one could ever touch her again. She didn't want to hurt them. She wanted them to see what they had lost. The daughter they underestimated, the woman they replaced, the person they thought would stay broken. One evening, she received an invitation in the mail. It was from Lily and Daniel, their first wedding anniversary. Emma laughed softly. The irony was almost funny. She placed the card on her desk, beside her sketches for a new project. Instead of tearing it apart, she looked at it with calm eyes. The past didn't own her anymore. The next morning, she received her first big client. It was a boutique hotel looking for an interior designer. Her proposal won immediately. That moment changed everything. It wasn't just success, it was validation. She was finally seen for her own worth. Her designs started gaining attention online. Clients praised her creativity and resilience. People admired her story. The woman who rose after betrayal and turned her pain into art. Emma didn't correct them. She let her work speak for her. For the first time in a long while, she smiled without pretending. She realized she didn't need to fight them directly. Her success would be her answer. Her silence would be her revenge. And so, Emma kept building, step by step, brick by brick. The family that had once broken her would soon watch her shine, not out of hatred, but from the strength she found in herself. They had treated her like a ghost at the table. But soon, she would be the name everyone remembered, and the one they could never forget. A year had passed since Emma left her family's house. In that time, she built something out of the ruins they left her in. Her small design studio had grown faster than she ever imagined. Her unique style, clean, emotional, deeply human, began attracting clients who saw something powerful in her work. They didn't know her story, but they felt it in every space she designed. Emma had learned how to turn pain into beauty, betrayal into art. She was no longer the girl whose wedding was stolen. She was the woman who rebuilt herself from ashes. Still, even success couldn't silence the echo of what happened. Every time she saw a wedding photo online, every time someone mentioned family, there was a small ache deep inside. It wasn't as sharp as before, but it was there, a quiet reminder of the people who had chosen convenience over love. Emma had told herself she was done with them, but part of her wanted closure. Not revenge in the cruel sense, but justice in the calm, undeniable kind. She wanted them to see what they had lost, not through anger but through truth. So she came up with an idea, something elegant, subtle, unforgettable. She decided to host an event, the grand launch of her new design brand, Parker & Co. The name was deliberate. It was the surname she was supposed to have, the name they gave to Lily instead. But Emma would give it new meaning, her meaning. It wasn't about taking something back. It was about reclaiming her story. The invitations were printed on thick ivory paper with gold lettering. Each one was signed personally by Emma. The message was simple. You are cordially invited to the grand opening of Parker & Co., a celebration of art, resilience, and new beginnings. She sent invitations to clients, investors, and old friends, and she sent 4 more, to her parents, Lily, and Daniel. The night of the launch arrived crisp and quiet. The event hall glowed with warm light. Elegant floral arrangements, white lilies and roses, lined the entrance. The guests arrived in formal attire, murmuring with excitement about the mysterious new designer whose work had taken the city by storm. Emma stood near the back, calm but alert. She wore a sleek black dress, her hair tied neatly, her posture confident. Every move, every word she spoke carried quiet power. Then they arrived. Her parents entered first, looking nervous but trying to hide it behind polite smiles. Lily followed, arm in arm with Daniel, both dressed as if walking into a mirror they didn't understand. When Lily saw the sign above the stage, Parker & Co., her expression faltered. Daniel's face went pale. They hadn't expected this. Emma greeted them with a warm, steady smile. "I'm so glad you could make it," she said, her voice calm. Lily stammered something polite, and Daniel nodded, clearly uncomfortable. Her parents tried to make small talk, asking about the success of her business, pretending as if everything was fine. Emma listened, nodded, and said little. She didn't need to explain herself. The room itself spoke for her. The event began with soft music, lights dimming slightly as guests took their seats. Emma walked onto the stage, microphone in hand. The crowd quieted instantly. She stood tall, poised, her heart beating steady. "Good evening," she began. "A year ago I lost everything I thought defined me. I lost love, trust, and even a part of my identity. But that loss became the beginning of something greater. Pain can destroy you, or it can shape you into someone stronger. Parker & Co. is built on that truth." The audience listened intently, drawn to her voice. Her words weren't dramatic, but they carried weight, the kind that came from real experience. "This company isn't just about design," she continued. "It's about rebuilding. It's about finding beauty in broken things. Every room, every line, every color here represents a story of survival." Then she turned toward the large screen behind her. "Tonight," she said softly, "I want to show you one of those stories." The lights dimmed further, and a digital art piece appeared on the screen, a painting Emma had created herself. It showed 2 figures standing under a floral arch, their faces blurred, surrounded by fading light. The title appeared at the bottom in gold letters, "The Ones Who Taught Me Strength." The crowd murmured in admiration, unaware of the deeper meaning. But her family knew. Lily's face went pale, Daniel shifted uncomfortably, and her mother lowered her eyes. Emma didn't look at them. She just stood there, calm, her expression unreadable. "This piece," Emma said, "reminds me that betrayal isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the spark that lights your true beginning. I dedicate this work to those who pushed me to discover who I really am." The audience erupted into applause. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled notes, and guests cheered her name. To everyone else, it was a powerful speech about perseverance. But to the 4 people sitting near the front, it was something else. A mirror held to their choices. After the speech, people surrounded Emma, congratulating her, praising her courage and vision. She smiled graciously, thanking each of them. Her family stood at a distance, uncertain whether to leave or stay. Finally, Lily approached her, voice trembling. "Emma, that was beautiful," she said quietly. "You've really changed." Emma met her eyes. "I had to," she replied. "It was the only way to survive." Lily hesitated, then whispered, "Are you still angry?" Emma smiled faintly. "No, anger fades, but lessons stay." Daniel didn't say a word. He just nodded slightly and walked away, his face unreadable. Her parents tried to congratulate her too, speaking in soft, guilty tones, but Emma only thanked them politely. There was nothing left to say. As the night went on, Emma watched them from a distance. They looked small now, not evil, not cruel, just lost. For the first time, she didn't feel pain looking at them. She felt peace. They had taken her old life, but in doing so, they had given her something greater: purpose. When the event ended, and the guests began leaving, Emma stood alone by the gallery window, watching the city lights shimmer. The reflection in the glass showed a woman she barely recognized. Calm, successful, unbroken. She thought of everything that had happened. The accident, the betrayal, the silence, the struggle. And then she thought of what came after: the rebuilding, the courage, the quiet revenge that didn't destroy but transformed. Her phone buzzed with messages from journalists and clients, but she ignored them. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She didn't need applause or headlines. The only thing she needed was this moment, the feeling of finally being free. Outside, she saw her family leaving the building. Lily glanced back once, her face unreadable. Their eyes met for a brief second. Emma gave her a small nod, not of forgiveness but of closure. Lily lowered her gaze and kept walking. Emma turned back to the hall, where her artwork still glowed under the soft lights. She walked toward the painting and touched the edge of the frame. "Thank you," she whispered. Not to them, but to herself, to the woman who had survived everything. That night, as she drove home, the city lights reflected off her car window like tiny stars. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt light. She hadn't needed to destroy anyone to win. Her success was her answer, her silence her victory. The people who had broken her could no longer hurt her, because she had risen far beyond their reach. And deep inside, she knew one truth more clearly than ever. Revenge didn't have to be cruel. Sometimes it could be beautiful. The weeks after the launch were quiet in comparison to the night of the event. Emma's studio grew busier, and with every new project, she felt a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before. Clients praised her vision, her ability to create spaces that felt alive and personal. Her name was being recognized in design circles, and invitations to exhibitions and collaborations began arriving. Yet beneath all the success, there was a quiet space in her heart that still felt raw. She had achieved revenge in her own way, the one that mattered. She had rebuilt herself into something stronger, something no one could take from her. But it wasn't a simple victory. Every time Emma passed by her family's social media profiles or received updates from mutual acquaintances, there was a flicker of the old pain. Her parents still posted pictures of family dinners and holidays with Lily and Daniel, their smiles carefully curated. Emma didn't feel the need to comment or confront them. She understood now that the past could not be changed, and their lives were theirs to live. The betrayal had been hers to process, and the only control she truly had was over herself. One afternoon, Emma received a call from a friend she hadn't spoken to in months. "I just saw your latest feature in the magazine," her friend said, excitement in her voice. "Your story is inspiring. People are really noticing you." Emma smiled, a small, quiet smile, and thanked her. She hung up and looked around her studio, walls lined with her designs, her sketches pinned like trophies of survival. She realized she was finally living for herself, not for anyone else's validation. The ache that had once consumed her was now transformed into motivation and quiet pride. Emma often reflected on the lessons she had learned. Betrayal had pushed her into the depths of despair, but it had also forced her to discover resilience she didn't know she had. She had thought that revenge meant confronting those who wronged her, making them feel the pain they had caused. But she realized revenge could take a different form, one that didn't destroy but elevated. Every client who walked into her studio, Every accolade she received, every smile she earned from seeing someone touched by her work, was her silent answer to the betrayal she endured. It wasn't about showing her family. It was about showing herself that she could rise above. Her relationship with her family remained complicated. Occasional messages came from her parents, polite but strained. Lily reached out during holidays, a brief note wishing her well. Daniel never contacted her directly. Emma didn't respond immediately. She had learned that forgiveness didn't mean reopening wounds. It meant understanding her own worth, valuing herself over resentment. She sometimes wondered if they ever felt regret. But she realized that wondering was pointless. Their feelings didn't define her anymore. One evening, after a long day of meetings and client presentations, Emma sat by the window in her apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. She held a cup of tea, letting the steam warm her hands. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. She had faced betrayal, confronted the emptiness it left behind, and transformed that energy into creation rather than destruction. It was not an easy path. There were moments of doubt, nights spent questioning her worth, times she had wanted to lash out. But each decision she made to rise above strengthened her, shaped her into someone she could finally respect and trust. Emma thought about the future. She had plans for expanding her studio, mentoring young designers, and maybe one day opening a space where art and healing could intersect. She realized that her past, as painful as it was, had prepared her for this moment. It had taught her patience, focus, and the ability to turn adversity into opportunity. She no longer measured herself against the people who had hurt her. Instead, she measured herself against her own potential. Occasionally, she allowed herself a private reflection on what had happened. She remembered lying in that hospital bed, the betrayal that awaited her in the form of Lily and Daniel taking her wedding. She remembered the silence of her parents when confronted, their explanations that never satisfied. She felt the old anger stir for a moment, but it was fleeting. She let it pass, acknowledging it without letting it control her. This was not weakness. It was mastery over herself. Emma also thought about what she had gained through this journey. She had discovered independence, a sense of self that was unshakable. She had proven to herself that her worth was not tied to anyone else's approval or attention. She had cultivated a career that reflected her vision and her passion. Most importantly, she had learned that revenge need not be cruel or vindictive. True revenge was rising, not retaliating. Creating, not destroying. One quiet morning, Emma decided to send one final message to her family. Not to reopen wounds, not to accuse, but to acknowledge closure. She wrote a simple note. I forgive you. I have moved on. I hope you can find peace in your own way. I will continue to live fully, as I always should have. She didn't expect a response, and none came. That was fine. The message wasn't for them. It was for her. A symbolic act of releasing the last trace of bitterness. A final gesture that she was no longer a victim. After sending the note, Emma walked through her studio, touching the walls, looking at the sketches and models she had created. Each one represented a chapter of her journey. She smiled softly, feeling the weight of the past finally lift from her shoulders. The betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable had become a stepping stone, and the woman standing there now was stronger than she had ever been. Emma realized that revenge had been a teacher. It had shown her the depth of human cruelty. Yes, but it had also shown her the height of human resilience. She could have spent her life consumed by anger, by the desire to hurt those who hurt her. Instead, she had spent her life building, creating, and rising. That was a victory no one could take from her. As night fell, Emma stood by her apartment window, looking at the lights of the city stretching endlessly. She felt a sense of calm she had never known. The past was still there, but it no longer defined her. She had reclaimed her life, her identity, and her peace. She had learned that the cost of revenge was often the loss of self, but by choosing a path of quiet strength, she had avoided that trap. Emma took a deep breath and let it out slowly. She felt the full weight of the journey behind her and the promise of what lay ahead. She was free, free from the pain, free from the anger, free from the control of those who had betrayed her. She had won, not by breaking others, but by discovering herself. In that quiet moment, Emma understood the final truth. Revenge, if it is to be real and lasting, doesn't lie in retaliation. It lies in transformation. She had taken the betrayal, the loss, and the pain, and turned it into something beautiful, something lasting. She had built her life not around the shadow of those who wronged her, but around the light she had found within herself. And for the first time, she felt completely, truly, at peace.